What is going on, everyone? Welcome back into another edition of the Fan Committee. I am one of your hosts, Joe Tuman, as always, and I am once again joined by a very, very happy Miami Dolphins fan, my co-host, Michael Herrera. Mike, how are you doing today? How are you feeling with one of the only two undefeated teams in the NFL, the Miami Dolphins, coming into today?
I'm feeling great. It's really exciting to see the Dolphins be 3-0, but like a good 3-0, because I believe this happened like a few years back. I think it was Ryan Tannehill's like last year with the Dolphins. We were 3-0, and then it tragically collapsed because we were actually a bad team. But this season, I'm actually really excited about the Dolphins. I really liked what they showed in that game, and I'm not gonna say the Bills are a bad team because I still honestly think the Bills are the best team in the league right now. But I think it's promising to see that the Dolphins, when the Bills played an actually good defense, the Bills were stoppable to some extent. Offensively, I think we would have played a little better if Tua hadn't gotten injured for a little bit, but that's what it is. But yeah, no, I'm really excited about the Dolphins. I really like what I've seen out of them. I really like the resilience out of this team. Not everyone has been pretty. We were down a lot against the Ravens and we came back and we beat the Bills narrowly, including the butt punt. But overall, I really like what I've seen out of the team. I like the way they're playing, and I like how resilient and how they're handling the adversity they've come up against currently.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, just coming back against the adversity, because yeah, they were down big last week, and then coming into this game, just playing the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills were tied 14-14 for a while there. So it was a close game, and it finished a close game. It was 21-19 final, but I really think the Dolphins, they just have to me right now, they have a complete team. I still think I agree with you that the Bills are probably the best team in the AFC. They'd still be my Super Bowl prediction to make it out of the AFC. But with their weakened secondary, they had a lot of people out this week. Unfortunately, Micah Hyde, a guy I'm a big fan of, both from when he was with the Packers, but even with the Bills, he's been a great player. He's out for the season with a neck injury. That's unfortunate. Dane Jackson's dealing with a neck injury. We saw that gruesome injury he had before, and Tre'Davious White still isn't back. So that Bills secondary, I think, it played a part in your victory, but not as much as I thought, because I thought guys like Tyreek Hill would once again feast, but he had a bit of a quiet day. Jalen Waddle still pretty good, but he didn't haul in like 10 receptions or anything. So honestly, the weakness that the Bills had that I anticipated, even though it still is kind of a weakness to me, it wasn't even the reason you guys won. You just were able to kind of outgrit them, and of course, in the end, that butt punt really helped you out to secure the win at the end.
It wasn't the prettiest game played by the Dolphins. I'm not going to sit here and play, wow, we played amazingly, an excellent beat. But, I really liked what I saw from the team. I really liked what we saw from Tua. I know Tua he only had like 186 passing yards compared to Josh Allen's, which was like 400. I liked the throws we saw from Tua. I thought he made a lot of smart decisions. I mean, that throw to Waddle right in between two of the safeties was incredible. A lot of people talk about how he can't throw it deep and he doesn't have or he's accurate, but he can't throw it deep or whatever. But I mean, it was a great pass to Waddle. I mean, it was in stride and everything. And I feel like people are overrating the fact that his arm is not as strong as like Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen, because I'm not trying to disparage other quarterbacks in the league, but like a lot of the times players have to stop running to catch a deep ball. Like that's not abnormal to happen. And I think people are really trying to overblow that, because they just don't want to admit that maybe Tua can be a good player. And, Tua, we can win games with Tua, as we've seen. We're 3-0. And so I think this game was mostly the defense. I think the defense really kept the Bills in check, and I'm really proud of the team because they went out there, they were playing in that 90-degree weather. It was insane. Players are cramping up, leaving the game. It was crazy. But, the defense stayed strong, somehow found enough gas at the end of the game to win it. And I think it was a great game. I think the Dolphins played very sound football for most of the game. Yeah, there were some mistakes, and definitely we took advantage of the fact that Josh Allen made some very uncharacteristic mistakes. I'm really happy about the win, but I'm also not going to start chanting Super Bowl run because we're not there yet. But I do like what we've seen out the Dolphins, and I'm really excited about this season.
I'm not saying you should be. I agree with you. I don't think you should be going out there declaring yourself the Super Bowl champions yet. But at the same time, I think the optimism is very, very much warranted right now. The only other thing about this game I'm interested to get your take on is Tua. When he went out, it seemed everyone thought he had a concussion, but they're saying it was just a back injury. He kind of dinged up his back. Do you buy that? Because we saw Tua wobbling around. Did you see any news from the Dolphins? Like something like
Yeah. Okay. So I did actually see something about that. I don't know the validity of this medical like statement, but a someone with like who has the track record to prove that they're telling the truth. Apparently, although yes, it was a dirty hit. I don't think it was malicious or anything like that. It was after the play or whatever. But honestly, he just hits his head on the back of the turf. But honestly, like when you watch it back, it doesn't look that crazy. Like he doesn't slam his head into the turf. It's kind of like his back hits the turf, he hits the turf. But what they're saying was apparently is that sometimes if you get like a lower back injury, like you hit it kind of hard, your legs can kind of start getting wobbly and not working and stuff. So I'm not super concerned about the league investigating the concussion protocol thing because I don't think it was a concussion because Tua has been listed on the injury reports the past 2 days as like it's like an ankle and back thing he has going on. So I do believe that I do believe them when they're saying that like this is just like a back thing because like medically it makes sense. Obviously, if you mess up your lower back, your legs might not work properly because like your spine and all that. So
yeah.
I'm not too worried about that. I do buy that, and I do think Tua is going to play on Thursday night because honestly, if Tua doesn't play Thursday night, I don't think we can beat the Bengals with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I would agree with you, except for how the Bengals have played at times this year, but they did handle business this week against the Jets. But I think I agree. I think Tua will manage to play that game. The thing with Tua is I agree with you because at the end of the day, the Dolphins would get in a lot of trouble if they were just misreporting an injury, saying it's a back when it's a concussion. I don't think they're doing that. I think they'd be really stupid if they did that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think everyone, any like actual insiders, all the people who like cover the NFL, cover the Dolphins, seems like the consensus is yes, this is a back injury. It just looked really bad. But the discourse online is, of course, about the concussions and should Tua have come back in. But at the end of the day, he did come out of the game for a couple plays, so they did do the procedures, but he went back in. So I don't think the Dolphins are like pulling the sheets over everybody's eyes here. I don't think they're lying. But it was weird to see him wobbling around like that, but it's good to see that most likely, as far as I can tell, he is not concussed whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it's very encouraging. So that's always good to see.
Definitely. I think the Dolphins, I think they'll beat the Bengals. They'll look to stay undefeated come Thursday, but we can talk about that game after it goes down on Friday. So it'll be interesting to see if you guys can keep this undefeated start going. But now we can talk about the other undefeated team left in the other conference, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles fans were elated today when I ranked them number one on the Joe Tuman Power Rankings. This is something they've been clamoring for 2 years. Every time they're saying, Joe, the birds are too low. They're not number one. They got it this week for me. I think they're the best team in football as of right now through 3 weeks. I think they're playing the best. Would you agree with that? Because there is a couple small concerns with this team that we can touch on, but generally, do you agree that the Eagles are deserving of that top spot in my eyes?
Yeah, no, for sure. I do have my nitpicks about the Eagles. I do think that there's some things they can definitely improve, but I do think they're the best team in the league. Just considering like if you're going to rank one of the two undefeated teams as the best in the league, it has to be the Eagles because they've definitely played the most complete football. They've played the best football out of the two undefeated teams, as much as it hurts me to say that. But I'm also not going to sit here and say the Dolphins are the best team in the league because we're not. We still got some kinks to work out. We still got some stuff to work on. But yeah, no, I do think the Eagles are the best team in the league right now.
Yeah, I would still pick like the Bills if you told me pick who you think is going to win the Super Bowl right now, I would say the Bills. But in terms of like that kind of power ranking thing, I think the Eagles have to be first. Like you said, they're playing complete football. They're secondary. We saw what they did to Justin Jefferson. They had no hard time against Carson Wentz this week. They had 9 sacks against him. I know they had 5 first half sacks.
Yeah,
Everybody was getting to the quarterback. I mean,
crazy.
It must have been nice for Eagles fans to see the opposite side of the Wentz debacle, as this was their first time playing him instead of Wentz playing for the Eagles in a game that involves them. But yeah. I don't know. I was optimistic about the Commanders, and I still think they'll rattle off 5, 6, 7 wins this year. But man, they decimated that offense. Jahan Dotson did nothing for me in fantasy. Just overall, the Commanders couldn't get anything going, and also Devonta Smith. What a star-making performance that was. I mean, I think everyone knew he had it in him. We saw what he did in college, but some of those catches, we saw the one where everyone thought he was out of bounds. He wasn't. Then we saw what he did in the end zone to get that touchdown. He looked great. He has the chemistry with Hurts from college. And, A.J. Brown wasn't even that crazy this week, and they still were perfectly fine. I think this offense, just top to bottom, is really good, except maybe you can nitpick the run game. But even then, I feel like when they actually use the run game, they're good. It's just they don't always use it.
That was actually going to be one of my nitpicks. I feel that their run game is being criminally underused. And when you have Miles Sanders, this guy you drafted in the second round, this guy who's coming up on needing a second contract, this guy who has shown potential and flashes of being an excellent running back in this league, and you're playing Boston Scott over him. Boston Scott, no disrespect to him, is a replaceable guy. Miles Sanders is your number one. He's your starter. You're not going to replace a starting running back as easily as you would Boston Scott. It's weird that they're just not running the ball as much as I feel like they should be, because that's it's kind of funny, but I'm sure you remember last year with Penn State. Yeah. Penn State, we could throw the football and we were pretty decent at it, but where was the run game? You need to have an effective balance, establish a run game. And that's what a lot of people said about the Dolphins too. They're like, wow, this Dolphins offense is great, but where's the run game? You need the run game to bleed out clock. You need the run game to give your receivers time to breathe and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to catch up to some of these teams, like the Dolphins and the Eagles. If we can't figure out our run games, this is not going to bode well for us later on in the season. And, that is one of my biggest nitpicks with the Eagles. And another nitpick, unfortunately, I want to say is that I think the Eagles have had a bit of an easier schedule. But this is an easier schedule in terms of hindsight, because honestly, no one expected the Lions to play as well as they did. And no one expected the Vikings and Commanders to be this bad, considering the Commanders and Vikings week 1 performances.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, their schedule has been a little easy, but I do still really like what we've seen from them. And I'm sure you agree that although the schedule has been easier than other teams, they still played very complete, fundamentally sound football.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think the run game thing is interesting. Week 1, it looked like Sanders was finally going to get involved as a full-time guy, and they've reverted from that. And to me, it's like Sanders and Gainwell should be the only backs touching the field. Use Gainwell for some pass-catching opportunities. I think Sanders is criminally underused in the pass game as well, but he also needs to take almost all of those run snaps. And I don't think you're saying maybe 1 or 2 snaps from Boston Scott if he really needs a breather. I don't think that's not allowed, but Boston Scott, besides when he plays the Giants, has not done anything that has warranted his continued usage on this team, and he was pretty bad this week. But it didn't matter because they decimated the Commanders, so it wasn't a huge deal. We're not saying that – neither of us are saying that the Eagles so far have had a big problem with it, but they're going to need to improve on it, like you said. If they really want to compete for the Super Bowl, they have to have that complete offense, because going against some of these other teams, they're going to need it. The only other thing I wanted to touch on with the Eagles – some Eagles fans have kind of said to me, well, we're doing good, but I wish we would score in the second half. And I think that's a somewhat valid thing to say, except that they've been so ahead, and the defense is held up in these second halves against Washington and Minnesota. Like I said, they haven't allowed that many second half points for the other team. So it's kind of just been like you aren't generating a lot of offense in the second half, but I don't think it's that big of a concern yet. It's only going to be a concern when you're in these big games, and then in the second half, you fall behind and can't finish the job. But so far, we haven't really seen that. So it'll be interesting to see if that problem continues or if that's an easily solvable one.
I agree, because I don't think that's really what the issue is. I think it's more just that the Eagles don't need to offensively overpower the team in the second half. Mm-hmm. It remains to be seen once they get into a closer game if that's actually the case. But for now, I feel like that's probably what's happening. I wouldn't be too concerned as an Eagles fan just yet, personally.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. So I don't know. I think the Eagles are going to keep rattling off wins. We talked about that schedule, and it's not even like a bad thing that they're playing bad teams. It's just how it is. I talked about before the season, I think this is the 1 seed in the NFC. I probably would have predicted them to be a 2 or 3 seed if they didn't have the schedule they did. I still think they're really good. But the way they're playing right now, I see no reason why they aren't going to continue to beat most of these teams they play. So I don't know. I'm excited to see how this Eagles season evolves. So I don't know. I think they're going to keep playing well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree.
Yeah. So another team who's playing really well, but I definitely didn't expect, is someone we've been talking about the past couple weeks, including you. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars. What a win this was for them. 38-10 over the Chargers. I know Justin Herbert is dealing with that rib injury, but he's been making throws in these games despite that injury. So I'm not going to pin it all on that. I'm going to give the Jags some real credit for this win, because I don't think anyone expected them to look this good on either side of the ball. And I think they're easily, the NFL has those DVOA stats, like the collective offense and defense score. They've got to be in the top 5 to 10 right now.
For sure. No, it's really exciting to see, especially because, the Jaguars have been kind of my sleeper pick since that first game of the season. Going into the season, I didn't expect a lot out of them, but after the Commanders game, really what I saw from them, and, I'm going to continue to support them. I think the Jaguars are going to be the Eagles' first big test this season, and I think it's going to be really fun to see because I'm pulling for the Jaguars this season. Obviously, not over the Dolphins, but I am really excited to see the Jaguars play well because they're as what many consider to be a poverty franchise, and it'd be exciting to see them bounce back. I like what we're seeing from them. I think Trevor Lawrence has played amazingly. Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people after the Urban Meyer season want to say, "Oh, it's because Trevor Lawrence sucks. It's not just Urban Meyer," and I think that's a terrible take. I think Urban Meyer was the worst head coach we've ever seen in NFL history. This is coming from a guy who had Adam Gase as his head coach for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
We had Joe Philbin before that. It was awful.
Oh God. Yeah. Dolphins, you know what a bad coach looks like. So if you're saying you know what you're talking about. Yeah. Listen, you talk about the Jags being historically like a poverty franchise. I mean, think about the stat Doug Peterson achieved this week. He tied Urban Meyer for the 5th most wins in Jags history. Now, granted, they haven't been around for more than like 25, 30 years, but it's still crazy to me that all it took was 2 wins for him to be in a top 5 on their leaderboard. But I think he's just going to keep climbing that leaderboard because I really like this Jags team. I agree with what you said about Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I've always agreed with that, but he's even surpassing my expectations. I thought he would get to a passable level, but right now he is very much through 3 weeks. I think you could argue he is one of the, top 12 to 14 quarterbacks in the league. He's above average right now. And I think that's even exceeded my expectations for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's kind of interesting because a lot of people were talking about, we don't think the Jaguars did great offensively to help him. And, it's really nice to see that we've all been pleasantly surprised. Christian Kirk has played well. We thought he was being overpaid, but I guess not. Maybe they saw something in him we didn't. After all, he was a second-round draft pick, so maybe we should have seen it coming. Zay Jones, also second-round draft pick. He's played well. James Robinson, that's my guy. I'm a big James Robinson fan. I love to see him playing so well, coming off the ACL tear. And also Trayvon Walker, I think he's played amazingly. I think it's really fun to see that a lot of people disparage that number 1 pick for him, but, he's playing really great, and I'm happy for him too.
On the offensive end of it first, James Robinson, I like James Robinson a lot. We saw what he did as an undrafted rookie coming straight in. I was a big fan of him. When they took Etienne in the first round, it was like, well, Etienne still probably has more talent than him, but then he gets hurt. And then I still would have said James Robinson can probably be better, except that he did. Like you said, he had the major injury. And I expected him to have a reclamation process. Look at J.K. Dobbins. Like, it's taken him a while to get back from that injury. James Robinson, it didn't take much time at all. They gave him a ton of carries last week. He's kind of inefficient, but this week he just took off with those carries. I think really put his hand down that he is the number 1 running back on this team. Etienne is okay, but huge fantasy bust. But just to put that aside, it's killed me having him in multiple leagues because he just hasn't done it for me. But putting that aside, just to analyze him fairly from a football stance, I think he's been all right as like the pass catching back. It's just he's had some drops. I expected more chemistry with him and Lawrence since they played together in college, but hopefully Etienne works on that. But as of right now, James Robinson, like you said, he's playing great and he's playing better than Etienne.
For sure. I think with Etienne, I think a smart choice for the Jaguars would have been to keep Tavon Austin around, because if you remember last year, they used him as like a receiving like halfback and which was kind of an interesting role for him. And it seems kind of like that's what they're trying to get Etienne to do. He'll be in the backfield, but sometimes they split him out wide and all that stuff. And honestly, I think not having a guy like that around to help him is kind of a shame. But I think Etienne's going to be fine. I think he's got a lot of talent. I do like what I've seen from him. I just personally was of the opinion that James Robinson was infinitely better. And as of now, James Robinson has proven that because he's really taken a chokehold on this running back room. This is his team in terms of the running backs to lead. And, it's really exciting to see. And I think the Jaguars defense also has held up remarkably well, considering me personally, I felt the defense was kind of more of the weaker point of the two because there's a lot of young guys in that secondary, especially, but a lot of them have stepped up, and it's really encouraging to see what Doug Peterson has done for this team. And it really goes to show you that Doug Peterson was kind of dealt an unfair hand with the Eagles. He had one bad season. I think he's going to get a warm welcome from Eagles fans. I don't think anyone's going to boo him because it's not like he chose to leave. He was fired, unfortunately. But things seem to be working out for the Eagles and Jaguars, especially the Jaguars. A very pleasant surprise this season. It's really exciting for them.
Yeah, I want to keep talking about that, to be honest, because you mentioned the defense. You mentioned Trayvon Walker. He's really exceeded expectations. Josh Allen continues to be a great pass rusher. I think they're a really good duo that's going to be there for a few years. They got defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell. He was the inside linebackers coach, he's the linebackers coach for the Buccaneers the last 3 years. And he's coming over from a system that had Levante David and Devin White, and we've seen it rub off. Look how quickly Devin Lloyd, their other first-round pick, he's also been very, very good. Foye Oluokun, who led the league in tackles last year, he's come over to Jacksonville, and he's kept up that elite play that he displayed with the Falcons. Shaquille Griffin's looked like a great signing at corner, and he didn't even play this week, and they still won that big, but he was good in the first 2 games. Tyson Campbell, the Georgia guy in his second year, he's looked good as well. Overall, this defense is vastly surpassing my expectations for them. They look really good. I mean, holding Justin Herbert to 10 points, I don't care if he has an injury or not. That's really impressive, and it was also impressive what they did to the Colts, stomping them out a week ago as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's really exciting to see what this team has been able to do because, a lot of us, including us, we disparage them. And a lot of these young guys, they've really shown out. And, not all of their defensive signings have worked out. I mean, we've seen Darius Williams coming over for the Ram.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's played terribly, which is a shame because I had hope for him. I was a big believer that it wasn't just playing next to Ramsey.
Mm-hmm.
Seems it was, but at least they have Tyson Campbell, who's excellent. He's a lot cheaper too, because his rookie deal yet. But yeah, no, I love this Jaguars team. I'm really pulling for them. I'm really excited to see where they can take it because I think this team, if they can continue to build on their success this season, we could see them easily being a wild card team. Because I thought originally the Dolphins were going to be that
wild card. You still say wild card for them, not division winner?
Jaguars. Oh, wait. Yeah, of course. I don't know why I was thinking. No, the Jaguars can easily be the division winners. I don't know why you're absolutely right. The Jaguars can easily take this division the way they've been playing. And I don't see any reason why that's going to stop happening. And I think it's really exciting to see that from the Jaguars. It's great. They've been down. They had the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row, but it seems like they're really moving up in the world right now.
I'm definitely in agreement. I think they're going to be my division prediction. I'm going to keep standing by that. But at the same time, the Colts, who we were very high on, did get a big win this week over the Chiefs. And we can talk about that game for a bit here. I still think the Jags are better than this team, and it's not just because they beat them. I think the Colts got by the skin of their teeth this week. But at the same time, especially for that defense, I think it's encouraging that they were even able to win that game no matter how they won it. No matter how close they were to losing that game, it's still impressive that they were able to win after getting thrashed by Jacksonville and tying the Texans. I don't even know what to make of this team now. And on the other side, the Chiefs, I just think had a really bad game. What was your take on that game?
Honestly, I don't want to be that guy because I was mad at the media for saying that, it's the Ravens lost the game. The Dolphins didn't win. But honestly, I don't think the Colts played amazingly. I do think this is largely more because of the Chiefs' offensive ineptitude. We saw a lot of people, I'm sure, have seen the whole thing where Eric Bieniemy was arguing with Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, I agree with Patrick Mahomes. Why are you running the ball when you're close to field goal range at the end before the second half, the first half ends? Yeah. That's completely insane. It doesn't make sense. And, we've seen Shady McCoy recently came out after the game. He was like, see, this is why I said I don't like Bieniemy. He sucks. This is why I'm mad when I had to leave the Chiefs. And it kind of speaks volumes to possibly about why Bieniemy has yet to be hired as a coach. A lot of people have floated around the idea that this is similar to a Brian Flores situation. And, I was inclined to believe that as well because it made sense to me at the time. But it kind of seems like maybe Eric Bieniemy is the problem. The Chiefs just didn't play like the Chiefs. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened to them. It was very bizarre, but
well, you mentioned they're trying to establish a run game that saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire run the ball 7 times for 0 yards. We haven't seen Isaiah Pacheco be able to replicate his week 1 success these last 2 weeks. I don't think Jerick McKinnon has much to him besides as a pass catching back, but they don't even really use him in that way. They use him as a runner a lot. So yeah, I just don't like the Chiefs run game in general. And I definitely didn't like how they were using it this week. I get that they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, but I feel like this Chiefs team has enough talented receivers that they should definitely be able to move the chains consistently.
Yeah.
I know there was the interception towards the end of the game, but there was more than just that one play that allowed the Colts to win this game. It's good for this Colts defense to have helped them get the win. But I agree with you on the Colts as well. I'm underwhelmed by them. I thought their offense would be much better. Their O-line hasn't been as good as I thought, which has then caused Jonathan Taylor to really not play up to expectations. He was under 4 yards a carry this week once again. And outside of Michael Pittman, that receiving group is really, really underwhelming. I know the rookie tight end Woods had 2 touchdowns this week, but I mean, 2 catches, 13 yards. Don't think that's too sustainable. They just happen to both be touchdowns. I don't think he's, going to sprint out and become the next Travis Kelce or anything like that. So I don't
Yeah.
know. And I don't think Matt Ryan, he looks like he's really declining. We talked about this last week. It sucks to see because I thought he was going to have a bounce back year with the Colts, but ultimately, I think this Colts team has the talent. They should still win some games. I think this is encouraging that they won this, but I think Jacksonville's better than them, as we just talked about.
Yeah, no, it's kind of weird. I think the Chiefs are just utilizing their run game weirdly. And in terms of what you were saying, you didn't like how they're using the running backs. I agree with you. I think their usage of them and the way they're using them is kind of odd. And as for the Colts, yeah, it's weird. And that's why I don't want to be mean to the Colts and say, like, oh, you guys didn't deserve this win. But even in the win, they didn't play amazingly, which is kind of why I'm still kind of just like, I just feel they're underwhelming. I feel like it's more that the Chiefs just did not play to their standards, really.
Yeah. Another weird thing that they did, I just remembered this, was they could have kicked a field goal, but they instead did that fake punt or fake kick with Tommy Townsend that didn't go anywhere. That was probably a mistake of a call at that point in the game. I will cut the Chiefs slight slack in that Butker was out this week with the injury. So they had Matt Amendola, who hasn't had much NFL success to this point. So they didn't have a really reliable kicker. But at the same time, I don't know, you might want to just try your luck with him instead of going for a goofy fake like that, because it really wasn't warranted in that close of a game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that there's just been some bizarre decisions made by them recently, which is kind of weird because, the Chiefs are pretty like sound teams in terms of what they're choosing to do and stuff like that. So it's kind of weird that they're making these weird decisions now.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It was just kind of an underwhelming game. It was kind of disappointing. So I personally don't have a lot to say about that otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs, I will say their defense has been good, and I think that's going to help them in that AFC West battle. I've liked what I've seen from, obviously, Chris Jones, but I also think Carlos Dunlap and Frank Clark have also been pretty solid off the edge for them as well. Carl Laftis as a rookie. So I think they've got a good front four and an overall defense, but yeah, until they figure out the offensive kinks, they're not going to be the best team in the league or even the best team in the AFC anytime soon, I don't think.
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree with that.
So another weird game that happened this week, we can shift gears to this one. I don't know if we want to spend too much time on this, but what was just your general opinion of the Niners-Broncos game? I was laughing the whole time, but it was also a horrific football game.
Sloppy.
Yeah.
Sloppy football. Russell Wilson, I don't know what happened to you. It seems that people were right to believe that this, or at least some people who said maybe Russell Wilson's finally falling off. But honestly, I don't even think it's necessarily just Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson's play could definitely improve. But something interesting that the broadcast team pointed out was that Russell Wilson's big thing is that if his reads don't work out, he'll improvise. He'll make something happen. That's where some of Russell Wilson's best highlights come from. This guy's a magician. He knows how to make something out of nothing. And it's kind of weird that we rarely see him leave the pocket. He doesn't move around. He's very static. He looks very Tom Brady-like in the pocket. And that's never really been his game. And there's nothing wrong with that. Russell Wilson plays a unique brand of football, and that's what made him so good. He plays unique football that a lot of people find hard to counter. And we've just seen none of that from him. And on top of that, his team, the rest of his team is playing terribly. Nathaniel Hackett, unfortunately, seems to be a terrible head coaching hire. He is the bad head coaching hire of this year, and it's a shame because, he was good for the Packers last year as a coach, so it's kind of weird to see him fumble this badly. But I don't have a lot to say about this game, about either teams, really, because the 49ers, I expected them to play extremely well and, kind of blow out the Broncos, and unfortunately, both teams played sloppy football, and it was really boring to watch, especially because, I don't know. It was just a bad football game. It was really disappointing for a primetime game.
Yeah, you mentioned the Packers. Nathaniel Hackett came over from the Packers. Aaron Rodgers had really good things to say about him. He was endorsing him to get a head coaching job. So I just don't know where this brilliant offensive mind that, he's son of Paul Hackett, who had a lot of success as an offensive coordinator. I don't know where this experienced offensive mind went, but instead we were left with a guy who can't manage the clock whatsoever. He hasn't really looked good as an offensive play caller either. I tried to cut them some slack against Houston. My argument, I was defending Russell Wilson and the Broncos all week leading up to this game. I actually picked them to win this game, as I told you before. And well, I guess they won the game, but not in the way I thought they were going to. I was saying, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, they were injured against Houston, really besides Sutton, who had a good game. Russell didn't really have anyone else to throw to, and that was maybe what was behind the stagnant offense. There is no such excuse this week. Everybody was on the field. They just couldn't generate any offense. The Niners, they were a little worrisome as well, but I think they're at least I don't know, I think they've proven this so far this year against Seattle in week 1. They at least can put the offense together when we've not really seen Denver do that at all through 3 weeks. I think the Melvin Gordon situation, you might have been right. I remember we did the podcast with Andrew, and me and him were like, no, it's okay that Javonte and Melvin, they got to split the time. And you were kind of like, well, I don't know about that. And we were like, no, Mike, they need both of them. But Melvin hasn't been that good. And he's also getting, I think, a little too many more touches than Javonte. I think Javonte and Sutton are the guys in this offense right now, and maybe Judy occasionally. And I think they got to recognize that. And I don't know if they really are recognizing that.
Yeah, it's just definitely some weird, interesting choices they're making. It's kind of also similar to last night's primetime game. I don't have a lot to say about this one either, but I just want to pivot to this one really quickly and just get it over with, because what we saw was an interesting game. It was a tough game because I hate the Cowboys, so I don't want them to win, but I also didn't want the Giants to go 3-0 because they should not be a 3-0.
No.
Similar to how you're talking about the Broncos, you're saying the Broncos haven't been able to put together an offense. Neither of the Giants. And, we were watching football 2 weeks ago, and you're like, look, man, I think Daniel Jones is the worst starting quarterback in the league. And you are absolutely right. Daniel Jones, either the pocket collapsed on him and he had no time to throw. And when he did have a clean pocket, it was one of the worst throws you've ever seen in your life. It was shocking to me that Tyrod Taylor is still not playing, but I don't know. I just think the Giants' offense is terrible. Not to mention Kenny Golladay, who had 0 catches, 0 yards, and he's demanding for playing time when he can't even catch a ball.
I don't know what happened to that guy. He was a guy I really liked, despite being on a division rival in Detroit. I had him on fancy teams a couple times. Seems like he's not interested in playing football right now. And I don't really know why. I mean, there has been guys, they get paid and then don't work quite as hard, but he's taken that to a whole nother level that I've seen very few times in the NFL. He's just not even remotely playable. And yet, I don't know, he's playing over Tony. I guess Tony's hurt right now, but week 1, Tony was healthy, didn't play a lot. So we'll see how that shakes out. But Saquon's their only guy. They won't even use him as a pass catching back that much, even though once upon a time he was amazing at that. And he still had a good game last night. He did have, I think, 75 rushing yards and a touchdown, but I don't know. This Giants team is weird. I don't think they're as good as maybe some Giants fans thought through those first couple weeks. I do kind of like some of their defensive players, but other than that, not a fan. I will say about Dallas, just to touch on them real fast, Cooper Rush is pretty good backup, but I think Dak, the fact that he's going to probably come back in 2 weeks is huge for this team. I assumed he was going to be out for a while. Now that Dak could be coming back, I like how this Dallas defense is playing. I've liked guys like Noah Brown stepping up and kind of becoming a real part of this offense. They're going to get Michael Gallup back. I thought the backup tight ends even kind of filled in nicely for Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
So I don't think Dallas is as good as the Eagles. But as we said before the season, I think if Dak gets back soon enough, there's still a chance this Cowboys team can go 9-8 or 10-7 and sneak into the playoffs as maybe that last wild card team. So I'm kind of still in on this Cowboys team.
Yeah, I do understand where you're coming from. And, just to point out how you're saying you like some of the Giants' defensive pieces, I actually really liked what we saw out of the Giants' defense. I think they held up remarkably well against the Cowboys, all things considered, even though, yes, they're playing Cooper Rush and a lot of backup players at their positions. They did hold up admirably, and they didn't get blown out like I expected the Giants to be. And I also agree with you. It's kind of weird that Saquon's usage was very up and down. Matt Breida was in the game a lot, which was kind of odd to me. I didn't really understand that. I was talking to Matthew about it when we were watching the game. We were just like, if you're going to take Saquon out of the game, don't put another running back in. What's the point?
Yeah, yeah,
Saquon is by far your best running back. Matt Breida is not a good running back. The only thing he's good at is being fast.
yeah,
And that does not translate to football very often like that. So why are you like, I don't understand.
yeah.
And it's very odd to see the choices they're also making, which is kind of weird from Brian Dable because Brian Dable is this very offensive minded coach. So he definitely had some questionable decisions last night, but I also don't think there was a lot Dable could do against just a much better team at this rate. So
I agree. The one last thing I want to say about the Giants, I don't agree with you as much as I don't like Daniel Jones. I don't know like what Tyler Taylor coming in is going to do for this team. I kind of like Tyler Taylor. I thought he played well early in the season with Houston last year, so I guess that's the argument for him playing. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like the Giants should almost just be like quasi tanking and just trying to get CJ Stroud or someone next year. Now, I guess you can argue they can still do that by playing Tyrod Taylor.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Because I
guess it's fair. I don't know. I for some reason I feel like that would be a bad move. I can't really explain why. I don't know. I don't know why I don't like it, but something about it is like, well, I don't think that's going to help. I don't know.
That's fair because regardless, they're still going to be a bad team. So I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. Me personally, I think they're still going to suck even with Tyrod Taylor. I would just rather see a better quarterback play for the Giants, especially Tyrod Taylor, who's kind of been dealt an unfair hand a lot of his career. True. He gets passed around a lot, and he's a pretty decent quarterback. But it is what
all the injuries he's had. Yeah, it would be cool to see him get a start. So, maybe I'll start rooting for that with you as well. I don't know. I don't even like Daniel Jones, so I don't know why I'm defending him. But I don't know. I'll retract my statement. Tyrod Taylor for starter. Let's go. I'm supporting it. All right, we'll have to see if that happens. Now, we haven't really gotten to talk about my Packers yet, but I wanted to, I got to touch on them a little bit. I don't have much to say this week, but. It was good to see us get that win. I think the defense has really proven itself throughout the season thus far, and people point to that Minnesota game week 1. And, it's a fair argument, but I also think in the second half, the defense, especially the front seven, was good. And definitely against Chicago and definitely against Tampa, I think the entire defense really showed out, really proved that they were a high quality defense. Kenny Clark had a good game. I think Preston and Gary have been really, really good all season, all 3 games together. Jair got hurt again this week. He had a groin injury. He left halfway through the game, but it seems fairly minor. We haven't heard any reports about it, which leads me to believe that he'll be raring to go for this week. And if not this week, then shortly after that. But Stokes and Douglas held it down pretty well, even in his absence. I was really impressed with both of them as usual. Tampa, we knew they didn't have a lot of receivers, and that's fair. It's a fair thing. I do think I did touch on this in a YouTube video I put out because I've been putting out Packers videos on my channel. I did touch on yes, Tampa was without their top 3 receivers. Gage did have an okay game with all those catches, but he didn't have a ton of yards either, so it's not like he was great. But, you can say, the Packers didn't have to go against a good offense, but at the same time, I don't know. Tampa's got a good defense. They've been holding teams down. They did it again. This was only a 14-12 game, but I think our early scores did the job for us offensively, and then the defense took it from there. What was your thoughts on this game as not a non-biased Packers fan? Because I thought we played really well until the last minute, but then we still were able to win thanks to Devondre Campbell's big play.
Yeah, honestly, I think I do agree with you that the last minute was a little bit of sloppy play, but I also think the defense was out there for a lot of that game. The defense was really on the field for a lot, and they were putting out a lot of pressure and stuff like that. They got a lot of fumbles and fumble recoveries. I think the Packers played pretty well, things considered. It was definitely a low scoring game, but I think that's also just the Buccaneers defense isn't terrible. It's pretty good. Yeah. So. I do agree with you. It was a little whack towards the end of the game. The Packers definitely should not have been put into that position, but they closed the game out, and that's what really matters. And I think the Packers played pretty well. There are definitely obviously some stuff they should clean up, like the fumbles, but in closing out games. But I still think they played pretty well overall. There's not much to say. I kind of expected the Packers to win, so I'm not super surprised with this outcome.
Yeah, I even put a tweet out there. It's like, if the Packers don't win this game, we're going to be in trouble for this season. So I was glad to see us sneak out of there with it. I will say, I think you're pretty accurate on the Aaron Jones thing in that, I don't think the fumble's a huge deal. I think he'll be fine. We saw how good he was last week against the Bears. I think this run attack is really good. And I know they didn't have the stats this week, but think about it. Like we said, it was a low scoring game. So the scores that did happen mattered. And Jones and Dillon really set up for both Lazard and Dobbs' touchdowns really well in that first half. Yes, the run game slowed down the second half, but really both teams' offenses did. So, this was just a defensive battle. I was happy to see that our defense was up to the task and we were able to get that win. Once again, I still think the Packers don't have that signature win just yet because we haven't really played, we have played a good offense. We just haven't beaten a really good offense quite yet. And we play the Patriots this week, so that's not going to change either. So I don't know when we're going to get the opportunity to really, maybe show our stuff. But I was really happy to see Dobbs cement himself. And Lazard was good too, but I do think Dobbs by the end of this year will be regarded as this team's number one receiver. I think you just got to listen to what LaFleur and Rodgers and everybody else on the staff are saying. Like, they're going out of their way to talk the guy up, and whether he's the next Davante Adams, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I like the James Jones comp for Dobbs. I think that's pretty reasonable for his career. I think for a fourth round pick, that'd be stupendous. So I don't know. I loved what he did this week. I thought he was a big part of us getting that win. So offensively, I'm still optimistic, but at the end of the day, like we've been talking about, I think both Tampa and Green Bay, for various reasons, are going to be defense first teams this year.
Yeah, for sure. And I do agree with you. I think Romeo Dobbs, I think he's played pretty great all things considered for a fourth round rookie. And, it's nice to see that he's got good rapport with Aaron Rodgers already. And I do like him. So I think it's great for you guys that, like, you guys were able to trade Davante Adams. And honestly, you guys have come out better from this trade. I was of the opinion that might as well keep your star receiver and you have Jordan Love back there. What's the point of drafting him, if you're not going to play him? But it seems that things are working out regardless for you guys. You guys still drafted Christian Watson. He still has a chance to break out and play what could. I mean, I'm optimistic he will. Obviously, he, like you were telling me earlier, he's just been injured. And so, like, he should be fine once he gets healthy and really gets into a rhythm. So, yeah, I like retroactively would take back that I was of the opinion that keep your star wide receiver because developing quarterback needs a good wide receivers. But you guys still seems to be set. And that seems to be kind of a theme with the Packers. Is the Packers kind of always seem to figure things out anyways. You guys picked up Devondre Campbell. He had a down year with the Cardinals before he signed with the Packers. And here he is. He's playing excellently. He's playing great football. He looks like he's still on the Falcons again. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I think the Packers are very solidly set. I think a lot of people reacted to the week one win. But I do agree with you also that they definitely haven't played an elite offense yet. But you guys will. Probably still going to beat them anyways because the Packers are just that good of a team. So I think the Packers season is going to be all right.
I'm hoping so. I just want to you opened the door for me to talk about this on the podcast. So I'm gonna take the opportunity. You mentioned the Devontae thing. I was really heartbroken when I saw he's getting traded, but you can look back at my Twitter, my videos, whatever. It took me about like 2 days to talk myself into it, and it wasn't just as a biased opinion. I really thought, look at all this money that's going to go to the defense. Look at the picks we're getting one of them became Clay Walker, who's already been pretty good in his first 3 games. And we're going to get another pick next year from the Raiders. Yeah. I think this trade's going to age really well. And I love Davante Adams. He did nothing wrong. I mean, he just wanted a big contract. He got the big contract. It was, he just wanted to leave the Packers. He just wanted to play with Derek Carr. And I don't know. I mean, some people can say the Packers drug their feet. Like they should have given him the contract before the season last year and maybe he would have stayed, but it's neither here nor there. I think ultimately it worked out for both sides, although Raiders are 0-3. I think they'll be better, especially next season, especially in the future. I think they're going to get better. But for this year, I think the trade worked out for the Packers. I really do. People might disagree, but if the Packers don't win the Super Bowl, if the Packers don't win the division, I don't think the reason is going to be primarily because of the Davante Adams trade. I think it will be because I don't know, just some lackadaisical play that we've seen at times with this team this year, but we've also seen some really good play from this team this year. So I think they're just trying to acclimate all the new players, just like some of the new faces into how everything's looking. So I think we'll be all right. I don't know if this is a Super Bowl contender, but that also might be a good thing for me because I think we're a Super Bowl contender every year and then we don't win. So maybe this year, when I don't think we're up to the task, maybe this is the year we can get it done.
Good point.
Put that out there. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, no, I think the Packers overall, they're going to do great. I'm not too worried about them. I thought people were overreacting to like that first loss of the season, but I think you guys are going to be great. You guys are set for a good season again. And I'm excited to see where the Packers go from here. I'm excited for the Dolphins-Packers game later this year.
On Christmas. We're going to have to do a Christmas podcast. This is going to be wild.
Gonna be
I'm
sick.
excited for that. Just to wrap up here today, we're talking about the Packers. We're talking about that game against the Vikings. Vikings and Lions played each other this week. Vikings wound up getting the come from behind victory with that Osborne touchdown. Justin Jefferson, I was saying last week, Vikings can only use Jefferson. This week, he was the only guy they didn't get involved. It's kind of weird what's going on with their offense. Dalvin Cook's dealing with a bit of an injury. I think the Lions look good, but they kind of choked it there. Between them, between the Lions, the Vikings, and the Packers, like who impresses you the most in this division? Who do you think is going to be like the playoff teams here?
I mean, to me personally, obviously the Packers is the easiest pick. The Bears are the easiest to say no way, no chance. I
Yeah.
honestly think it's going to be a good fight between the Vikings and Lions. We've seen a lot of good and bad from both these teams. Honestly, I would say this is Detroit's first really bad game because, yeah, sure, they lost to the Eagles week 1, but I mean, they were very much toe to toe with the Eagles the whole game. So I think they've played excellently so far. They had a very commanding win over the Commanders. And then, of course, they lost here to the Vikings, unfortunately. Although it seemed from the post-game interview, Dan Campbell realized his mistake. He wanted to trust his kicker, but also he understood that sometimes you have to be aggressive if you want to win the game. And I understand it happens sometimes. You want to go for the safe bet. I mean, honestly, I think it's a toss-up right now because from the Vikings, although they did play better today, evidently, as the fact that they won,
Mhm.
I don't love the fact that sometimes receivers are completely absent from their offense.
Yeah.
Last week it was Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen only started getting catches in the fourth quarter because Justin Jefferson just wasn't open all game. And kudos to Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne. They played a great game this past weekend. But your star wide receiver, who many consider to be one of the best in the NFL, should not be disappearing for an entire game. It's kind of weird game plan. And also it doesn't help that Dalvin Cook seems to have a semi-serious shoulder injury. I haven't seen any major reports about it just yet, so maybe it's not super serious, but that remains to be seen. And Alexander Madison's great. He's a great running back, not to disparage.
He's good. I think he deserves to be a starter once he leaves the Vikings. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. But I think the problem is that having Dalvin Cook helps keep both of them fresh. And now that Madison is now the sole lead running back, that's going to wear him down a lot, and that could lead him to get injured. So I think the Lions and Vikings, they've shown a lot of good and bad in these first few weeks. And I think it's going to be a real fight between which of them might possibly be fighting for that NFC wildcard spot. But I do think these are both two of the teams that are going to be in contention all season long for that.
Yeah, I think they're all three of these teams could make the playoffs. I don't think it's likely. I think only two of us will make it, but it's hard to rule out completely the possibility all three of them make it. Another running back now injured is DeAndre Swift. A lot of people were worried about why Jamal Williams is getting so many more carries, and I like Jamal Williams a lot, former Packer, one of my favorite Packers, to be honest. I love the energy he always brought, and it's cool to see him now get this opportunity to be a number one back, but Swift is out. I think they said until week 6, so he's going to miss the next few games. So Jamal Williams and Craig Reynolds are going to get the opportunity to step up to the plate. So that's exciting. But, a lot of people were worried about Swift's carry count. I think it's pretty self-explanatory now. He's already questionable coming into last week. Now we know he's hurt, bad. So not bad, but, for a couple weeks here, semi-serious. So, that I feel like the Lions have now been justified in the way they're using Swift. And the only other thing I wanted to touch on was you were talking about the Vikings receivers. And this was a group that I think I said before the season on here, maybe even on this podcast, that I thought they were the best receiving core in the league. Now, I think your guys, Dolphins, with the way Waddle's played, I think him and Hill have kind of made Miami the best in the league. But, I was expecting the Vikings to be the best, but that didn't mean use one of the guys every game and they'll have a crazy stat line, but the other guys don't. They got to all be involved game to game. That hasn't happened once yet. So I think you made a really good point with that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because the Dolphins, last weekend especially, Tyreek Hill didn't play amazingly, but he still had some catches in there, and he made the important catches we needed. Even Cedric Wilson, unfortunately, Cedric Wilson was injured, but Cedric Wilson, Trent Sherfield, who are the 3 and 4 on our offense, they also when they play, they don't get a lot of targets, but they make them count. So that's the issue with the Vikings. I think Adam Thielen, I understand that Adam Thielen's getting older and he's not as explosive as Justin Jefferson or even KJ Osborne, because obviously he's 33, I think. But he's still a sure-handed wide receiver. You should be taking advantage of that while you can, because he's not going to be there forever, you know? But I do think it's kind of weird that like you're just kind of picking and choosing. It's a very odd situation to be in.
I just feel like the Vikings do stuff like this every year. It's not the exact problem, but they always have some little issue that, like, I know it's a new coach this year, but it's always some little nitpick that winds up biting them in the butt and they wind up not doing as well as they wanted to. I don't just say that as a Packers fan, although it makes me very happy to say that. I'm trying to be factual with my analysis here, but I don't know. I think the Vikings very much could still make the playoffs, maybe even win the division because they already beat us once. So I don't know. I think they're definitely playoff caliber. It's just I think they've been a little sloppy. Don't like the defense that much for them. So they're gonna have to work on some things if they want to get back to how they looked in week 1 against the Packers.
For sure. No, I totally agree.
Well, that's gonna do it for this edition of the Fan Committee. Thank you guys so much for listening. It was fun to go over these games this week. We'll be back on Friday. We're predicting the games for week 4, and we'll have a special guest, our first guest of the regular season. Mr. Chris Reynolds is going to come on, and probably we're going to talk some Saints with him as well. And he's probably going to cry the whole time and call everybody on the team fat, which we don't condone. But, you know, it's not our words, it's his. So we'll have to see what he says about that. But stay tuned for that. That's going to do it. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of your day. Make sure to follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And other than that, catch you on Friday.